Pretend like their music is your music.
Ah, this is Mommy's jam.
Then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
Let's play it again.
Check today at nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
My simple solution to the problem was remove people from the scene and help them feel safer.
In response to attacks against Asian Americans, Maddie Park raised over $250,000 to donate cab rides to the Asian community.
There is so much more work to be done. We really need to come together and tackle this issue as a community.
Support the Asian community. Learn how at lovehasnolabels.com. Brought to you by Love Has No Labels and the Ad Council.
This is Sunday Rewind on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Now, here are your hosts, Tom Stevens and Mike Melby.
Welcome in another Husker Rewind. He's Mike Melby. I'm Tom Stevens. Nebraska coming off a tough loss Saturday night. At times it looked good, and then Casey Thompson went down, and Nebraska went with their hopes of winning. Illinois manhandles Nebraska really in the second half, 26-9. And Nebraska now has lost a couple in a row under Mickey Joseph, and we'll see how that goes. I want to listen to the presser, but Mike Melby is sitting over there. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Tom. It's been a interesting week. Trying to get prepped and ready for Halloween, and then I was hopeful for Huskers, but
you take Halloween extremely seriously.
Oh yeah,
like you spend literally thousands on your display.
Yeah,
correct?
Yeah, we do. It's not all. That's the thing, though. It's not all animatronics. We don't just go buy. We don't have like 7 things out there that are all animatronics. We build most of our props. We do have a couple of animatronics. We actually built our first one, where it's all hooked up to an infrared sensor and it's got a speaker. It's pretty cool. But yeah, we take it overly seriously, and Shaggy Sinister Circus will be back in.
Where'd you come up with the name Shaggy Sinister Circus?
Well, we always had a circus theme, and then when we vacationed down in Pensacola a few years ago, we went to a bar called Shaggy's, and the food was good, drinks were good, but the service was amazing. And just everybody there was so personable. We got to be actually pretty good friends with a couple of the staff there. And that's kind of where the Shaggy's name came from. And then I haven't cut my hair in almost 3 years.
Okay, that makes sense.
So we called it Shaggy Sinister Circus. And
so it's a little scary.
Are
kids frightened by it at all?
Veronica, who is 4, lives up the street.
Yeah.
She wanted to come see the new clown.
He's a sinister clown. He's crazy.
He is. She's not a fan. So there's a couple of creepy things. We're not trying to scare people because it's not a haunted house. It's just eye candy, and we enjoy doing it, and we hope people have fun.
What time? What's the address? Can we come by and come by?
About 3rd and Judson. You go to 3rd and Judson, you'll find us. We're about a block east of 3rd and Judson. That's a couple of blocks north of 3rd and Adams. But stop by, and we have all kinds of fun stuff up there, and
stuff for the adults as well.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, we do.
All right. 3rd and Judson tomorrow night. Let's get to the starting gate. We like to run through everything that happened in Husker Nation or around Husker Nation during this show. We try to go rapid fire. So here's Mike Melby.
On Wednesday, the NCAA's Division I Board of Directors approved updated guidance on NIL, clarifying how schools, coaches, and staffs can be involved with athletes' deals. No new rules were actually put in place, but the clarifications are intended to give athletic departments a better idea of what types of support fall outside of the rules that don't exist.
Gotcha. I'll look up I have no idea really what you just said.
You know what? I wrote it. I don't know what I said. I read the whole thing. I don't know whatever. In Major League Baseball, speaking of whatever, from my interest at least, the World Series is underway between Philadelphia and Houston. Series is tied at 1, and they head to Philly tomorrow night for game 3. After being swept at number 5 Wisconsin on Wednesday, 25-23, 25-23, 25-18, Nebraska volleyball rebounded last night with a sweep over Maryland at the Devaney Center, 25-16, 25-9, 25-19. And you had 24 blocks led by Caitlin Hord's 9, Whitney Launstein's 8. Launstein, Becca Alec, and Lindsay Krause all had 7 kills for the Huskers. On Thursday, the Tom Brady-led Tampa Bay Buccaneers lost their 3rd straight game, this one, on Thursday to the Baltimore Ravens, 27-22. First time since 2002 that a Brady quarterback team had lost 3 in a row. And then on Friday, I don't know if it's a day of celebration for him or if it's a day of mourning for him, but on Friday, him and Giselle Bunchkin announced that they are getting divorced after 13 years of marriage.
Don't you think it's possible that he gets the better settlement in that settlement?
Yeah, she's worth more money than he is.
She's worth like $1 billion, I believe.
Yeah.
I'm sad for him because nothing in his life has gone well up until this point.
Yes.
I mean, no, I hate to see any marriage go astray. I don't feel bad for him, but it's sad anytime any marriage ends.
Yeah. After Michigan's 29-7 win over Michigan State and Ann Arbor, video taken in the tunnel heading back to the locker rooms shows Spartan players Tavion Brown, Zion Young, and Angelo Gross, a couple others as well, shoving, punching, and kicking Michigan defensive back Jaden Burrows. The Big Ten and local police are looking into the incident. Jim Harbaugh said that there were actually 2 players who were assaulted. Bottom line is Mel Tucker's team looks horrible on the field, and it seems to be out of control off the field.
Well, at least they fought in that game. They were completely overmatched. Michigan was a way better team, but this is twice in the last 2 weeks. Well, the last 3 weeks at least. I know there was an incident going to the locker room. I think it was at halftime with Michigan at Penn State. And now this was a bad incident. This would look like it was more the fault of Michigan State. But it's interesting that Harbaugh is always involved in these things.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say.
His teams don't seem to lack any confidence, like he doesn't seem to lack any confidence or khakis.
Right.
2 top 10 teams lost yesterday in college football. Number 9, Oklahoma State was humiliated by freshman Skylar Howard's 296 passing yards and 4 touchdowns by the Kansas State Wildcats. Deuce Vaughn added 158 and a TD on the ground. And also number 10, Wake Forest was knocked off 48-21 by Louisville. Nebraska soccer. I am not a huge soccer fan, but I'm a fan of Nebraska teams.
Yeah.
And Nebraska soccer picked 12th of the league in the preseason, knocked off 25th ranked Ohio State this afternoon. 4-0, and they are headed to the Big Ten Conference semifinals. So major props to the Nebraska soccer team heading to the Big Ten Conference semis.
I'm stunned that I have to ask this question, but is John Walker still the coach in Nebraska?
I have no idea. I just don't follow soccer at all.
I mean, and there was a time when he was hired, early in his tenure. Nebraska was really good, and they went through a spell where they have not been as good, and so this is nice to see Nebraska soccer having a nice year.
And to put a bow on the starting gate, I just want to say that in the NBA, the Lakers remain winless. They're 0-5. I like LeBron James, and I would cheer for him, but I hate Russell Westbrook, and I can't cheer for any team that Russell Westbrook is on. And so it just delights me to see that the Lakers are 0-5.
Well, they are not good. They got to make some changes. I mean, they still got Anthony Davis and LeBron. They shouldn't be this bad. I understand they're bad, but they shouldn't be this bad. And they're really, really bad.
Russ is a cancer.
Well, yeah, I know he has been for a while. But I thought it would go better than it has with Russell in Los Angeles than it has. And it's not going well at the end of his career. And he and LeBron, maybe had 2-3 years left? We'll see.
Yeah.
I can't see it. I mean, a lot of miles on the wheels of both those guys. Let's get to the presser. Some of the stuff that Mickey Joseph said after Nebraska's 26-9 loss to Illinois. Interesting opening comments when talking about the style of play in the Big Ten.
Well, it's Big Ten football. We got to come back. We got to go back to the practice field. We got to have another physical 2 or 3 days of practice and get back at it. I mean, we can't run away from it. We got to hit it. We got to go in and hit first. We can't run away from it right now.
There were interesting comments from both Mickey Joseph last week, I thought, and then you had Mark Whipple toward the end of the week saying some interesting things. Because Mickey has said over and over, we got to match the physicality of the teams that we're playing, these 5 games left. And starting with Illinois, you're going to get another one with Minnesota. Michigan, certainly a physical team. Then Iowa, Wisconsin, both really physical opponents. And Mickey was saying, hey, we got to be more physical. We've got to match the aggressiveness. And to the most part, they did a fairly good job. But then you had Mark Whipple say, you know what? Physical doesn't mean anything to me. It's about scoring points. It feels there's not an argument going on between those two guys, but there might be a little argument going on between those two guys.
Yeah, I noticed that. And the one thing that has become abundantly clear, Mark Whipple is an unreal passing game
play designer. Yep.
And I am astounded at how poor he designs a running offense.
Yeah.
He's the offensive coordinator.
The offensive line he has been handed is not a good one.
I get it, but at the same time, he can scheme. He could scheme a guy that is on crutches open in the passing game.
And a couple of times he kind of did that. I mean,
but
the Vokalek home run was pretty cool. 56 yards for a touchdown. The Brewington pass was really cool. The tight end screen. But you're right. We can talk about this as we go along. I just thought that was interesting how Mickey's been emphasizing physicality, and Mark's just like, I don't really care. I just want to score some points.
Yeah, and I guess I'm going to side with Mickey on that one. Yeah. I don't get the. At the end of the day, yeah, I get it. Points are more important, but this is the Big Ten. This is where you get punched in the mouth, and if you don't punch back, you're going to get beat 26-9.
It was obvious Nebraska suffered when Casey Thompson went down on his second pick of the night. This is Mickey talking about that.
Well, I knew after when Casey went down, we was in, we thought we was in good place when Casey went down. After Casey went down through the pick, yeah, I was surprised that it got away that quick. Got away from us.
It does seem like both Chubba Purdy, well, it didn't seem, they just weren't effective. Neither him or Logan Smothers. Now, Logan didn't get a big opportunity. He played a couple of, and they showed the run game. They obviously had a package of plays more so for Smothers than they did with Purdy. I think they tried to run the previous offense that they were running under Casey Thompson with Purdy, and he's just not ready yet. He's just not ready to do it.
No, not at all. And to have a guy like Logan Smothers that's been in the program for as long as he has, and I get it, he's in his first year with this offense as well, and this offense does not suit his skill set that he's really good at. I get all of that, but how does Logan Smothers, after watching Chubba Purdy play, how is Logan Smothers not better than that? I find it hard to believe. I don't get why Logan didn't get more time. That makes no sense to me.
Right.
Chubba Purdy just does not look like he's ready to take a snap in a meaningful snap in a game right now.
It's hard to believe that Nebraska can go very far. I mean, they were going to struggle even if Casey Thompson was at 100% effectiveness. And you could say, oh, well, they dropped the pass. Ramir Johnson dropped the big pass, and that was a big drop. But you shouldn't have to play perfect football every single week just to be in a game. And it feels like Nebraska is there. But that being said, losing Casey, there's just not another Casey on this roster.
No.
There's Casey Thompson, and then there's, whatever you have at backup.
Yeah, and Chubba Purdy, I think, is a very talented young man. He just does not look like he's ready for the prime time or the spotlight right now. And I hopefully it's just something where he's got to work through it. And there's no better experience than just, getting thrown into the fire and figuring it out, which hopefully he does.
Mickey Joseph, obviously a very thoughtful guy. This is him talking about Illinois being able to run rub routes on Nebraska's defense.
There were some rub routes, and we got to fight through the rubs. We got to get over the top of it, or we got to fight through the trash to get there. And we talked to him all week about the pick routes, and that's the first touchdown was on a pick route. And we got to fight through the noise. We got to fight through it.
Yep. He says a lot of the same things over and over, but I guess that's how you get a message across. I mean, you're seeing a theme a little bit with him, right? That and I'm not here to pick on Scott Frost, but it never seemed like there was any particular theme with Scott Frost. It was just whatever you felt like talking about that week. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being a little too mean on that one.
No, I think you're absolutely right. Things are not going well for Nebraska basketball in their exhibition at Colorado.
Ooh,
yeah, they're down 10 rip. It looks like they've been lucky to hit the rim. a couple of times on some shots. They've had wide open looks, and it's not even close. They're just bricks.
I think we're going to see those nights. I mean, there's just not a lot of shooters outside of C.J. Wilcher that you would say, oh, that's good. Oh, when they shoot it. I think Casey Tamanaga could be that guy, but he's going to struggle to get looks because of his size. Yep. I mean, he's just easier to cover. Back to what some of the stuff that Mickey Joseph said at the press conference after the game, Nebraska losing to Illinois 26-9. Purdy, we talked about Purdy and him being in the game.
Well, he's just got to take care of the football. On the interception, he's throwbacks across the field. You learn that first day of quarterback school. Don't throw across your body. Don't throw across the field. Should have just ran the ball because we already were in field goal range. We already had points. And he understood that after. I got to get him I got to prep him better. I got to get him ready better.
Well, and right there you go. Mickey just states the obvious that Chubba Purdy knows this is the wrong thing to do, right, yet he did it anyway. And then Mickey says, that's my fault. I've got to coach him better. And that's he's
the CEO. He's right. He's right in that. But I think that he has a way of saying, it's his fault, but I got to coach better. I think, I mean, he doesn't ever lay it on a player. He always takes the blame, but I've got to coach better so he can play better. That's basically it. I mean, he's not shying away from what he's doing here as the head coach at Nebraska. Obviously, Trey Palmer struggled in this game. One of the big reasons, coming off a career day the week before and then going into the bye week. Maybe you thought with 2 weeks to prepare, they could work ways to get Trey Palmer open, but it was a point of emphasis for that Illinois defense on Saturday. Mickey talking about it.
Well, they mixed it up. We couldn't get it to him, but they were really handsy. And we talked to him during the week that they're just not going to let you run. So he's got to run through some of the contact. He understood that after doing the game that he had to run through it, but just some plays we just couldn't get it to him.
There you go.
That's interesting. That he's a guy that I would have thought you wouldn't have to explain to him after the game that, how difficult it is to run through, some handsiness by defensive backs.
Yeah. Well, they're very handsy, and you just kind of have to. And I think officials know that unless it's egregious, that a certain team, they let some teams play to their personality.
Yeah.
And Illinois is really aggressive, but you're going to see that same type of defense versus Wisconsin and Iowa, and certainly this week as well. I mean, it's just what it is. All these teams in the West are the same. I can't tell a lot of big difference between Illinois and Minnesota this week or Iowa.
We're going to rank our top 14 Big Ten teams here later on. And I swear that number 12 through number 6 are just all tied for 6th.
They're all the same team. And sometimes
team.
You forget, well, that team beat that team, so they've got to be higher. But you're like, no, it's just that week. What happened? Where was it played? How many fumbles were there? That type of thing. So you're going to see some of our rankings probably not make very many, in some cases, any sense when you talk about head-to-head competition and who won those games. It doesn't seem to matter in the Big Ten West. But who's going to win the Big Ten West? I guess it's Illinois. This is Mickey Joseph on trusting Mark Whipple.
Well, I'm confident in him, but I think that, if Whip wants to go with Chubba because we think Chubba throws a little better, let's go with Chubba. But we'll have to take it from here because we don't know what's going to go on in Casey. So it's a possibility you'll see both of them.
I trust him, but very interesting comment there. Your bottom line, if Casey Thompson is not healthy, they've got to figure out how they can get Chubba a package at the beginning of a game if he's going to get a start to make him feel comfortable. Because he wasn't a 4-star recruit going to Florida State and, moving on to here, et cetera, because he's not talented. Yeah. You just got to get him. Maybe it's just a little bit of, because
a lot of times it's as simple as, finding plays that he can execute. And maybe there's a package of plays for both he and Logan. In fact, Mickey talked about that after the game. Why didn't Logan play more?
Well, we wanted to go Logan because we thought we was going to run some option, and then we figured we had to throw it to get back in it, so we went with Chubb.
Well, that's just telling you that they trust Chubb to throw the football and not as much with Logan.
Well, and you watch the spring game, and you can understand. And, the interesting thing is, I thought against Iowa last year, Logan Smothers threw the ball pretty well, and in the spring game, and granted, it made his 2-hand touch whatever they did, but Smothers just didn't look comfortable throwing the ball, and it just looked a little awkward, and it wasn't as accurate. And it at the same time, he's another guy that was a 4-star recruit that I don't know.
Let's face it. If you're the number one guy, you're going to get all the reps in practice, especially during the season. And if you're a Shepard Purdy, you could say, well, it's always next man up mentality. But if you don't get those reps in practice, those first team reps, there's a big drop off. And there's also a reason why one guy is named the starter and the other guy is named a backup.
Yeah.
I think Purdy is a pretty talented athlete. And I think he's a 4-star recruit for a reason. I would be anxious to learn what happens when he becomes maybe the guy next year. Who knows? Does Casey stick around for another year at Nebraska? He can.
It depends on who the offensive coordinator is, because I'm pretty confident it's not going to be Mark Whipple.
But there's a lot of offensive coordinators that would look at him and say, I'd like to keep him. But you're right. He might decide to follow a guy like Whipple wherever he goes.
Yeah.
And Whipple, if he wants to continue coaching in college football, I'm guessing somebody would hire him.
The guy's a genius.
He's really smart. And even Nebraska with that offensive line moves the ball.
Yeah.
At least when they have their number one guy. They didn't in the second half when they didn't have their number one guy. This is one final thought from Mickey Joseph here. What did he say in his post-game speech to the guys?
Well, we just talked and said, you know what, we're gonna come back, we're gonna watch the film, and we're gonna look ourselves in the mirror. We're gonna be honest with ourselves. We're gonna tell the truth like we always do on Sunday, and we're gonna see where it went wrong at. We're gonna fix it, because if we don't fix it, it's a copycat lead. They'll come back and hit us with it again next week.
He says that stuff every week, but the message again, there's a reason coaches say the same thing and they become cliches because they, every coach says them. Some coaches just mean them more. And it feels like Mickey just really means what he says. He's really dialed in on his football beliefs.
Well, he is. And it's so funny now. We're, 4, 5, 6 weeks into him being the interim head coach and all the press conferences, et cetera. And it is so painfully obvious why young men want to play for a coach like that. It just is. Yeah. There's no BS. There's no sugarcoating. There's no nothing. It's just straightforward honesty. And guys that don't want to play for him, they don't like to be held accountable.
No.
They don't like to be told they're not the greatest, the best, the whatever.
And you probably don't want that guy on your team.
Exactly.
So you might as well clean house with him. And I think that approach, guys know where they stand. Wait a minute, I don't like that guy. I don't like playing for a guy that demands a lot of me and wants me to be honest with him all the time. I'm out.
Yeah.
And you'll get those guys out of your program. They can see through their own eyes. They don't have to be told in many cases. They can see through their own eyes that they don't fit in a Mickey Joseph culture. And I don't think every player does. And I don't want every player to fit in with Nebraska. It should be a hard place to play.
Yeah.
The demands should be high, and you should have a coach who's honest with them. And I still think there's a very good chance that Mickey Joseph, while he won't be the next head coach at the University of Nebraska, and I still think there's a chance of that, I think they're going to try to find a place on the staff for him. And we'll see how that goes. There are a lot of head coaches in college football that don't like to be told what to do with their staff. So that seems like maybe it could be a power struggle down the line, with a guy like Trev Alberts and the coach to be. So we'll find out.
Could be interesting. Quick update for you out in Boulder. Colorado is up on Nebraska 14-7. Casey Tominaga with a couple of threes. And,
okay. That's good news, because you were acting like this is going to be a 40-point blowout, and now it's a 7-point game.
Well, we've only made 2 field goals.
So Colorado's not playing well either.
And we went 1 of 3 from the line when we got fouled on a 3-pointer. So
I guess it's good news that they're not running away from Nebraska. Maybe the defensive aspect of this team could be real.
I'll tell you, I've been glancing at the stream of this, and the Nebraska's got a pretty salty defense.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That at least is good news. And maybe on nights when they shoot the ball, they could win those games. But we'll keep an eye on that for you. Nebraska, Colorado exhibition in Boulder. But we've got a lot more show to get through. We'll do our grades a little bit later on, offense, defense, special teams like that. Also, the Big Ten Blitz is headed your way. Next hour, it's Tanya Taki talking a little Husker volleyball, of course, losing to Wisconsin on Wednesday night, then coming off the big sweep last night. And Sean Callahan of Husker Online, presented by On3, will join us in just a mere matter of moments. Maybe talk a little recruiting and some definite Husker football on the way. Sean Callahan of Husker Online is next.
Are you a veteran looking for a new companion animal, a dog, a cat, or maybe something else? The Nebraska Department of Veterans Affairs Vets Get Pets program can cover up to $350 of your pet adoption fees. Visit veterans.nebraska.gov/vetsgetpets to learn more about program requirements and how to apply. Want to help support the program? Get your Vets Get Pets specialty license plates from the Nebraska DMV. Sponsored by the Nebraska Department of Veterans Affairs. Aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
When you're high, you feel different. You think different, you talk different, you draw different, you listen to music different, but you probably knew that. Problem is, you also drive different, and not in a good way. That's why driving high is illegal everywhere. So if you're high, just don't drive. Make a plan to get a sober ride. Because if you feel different, you drive different. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
This message is for Shauna, my mom, who just finished her high school diploma. I wanted to say I'm so proud of you for finishing school. You told me it's never too late to achieve your dreams. I hope to make you as proud as you have made me.
When you graduate, they graduate. Finish your high school diploma for you and for them. Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free and supportive adult education centers near you. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Papa, why can't we telegraph while riding a horse? Son, there ain't no one to blame but Jeffro. He was riding old Betsy the Stallion, tip-tapping away at his telegraph, when blam, ran right into the side of the saloon.
Well, if Jeffro can't do it, neither should you. Don't text and drive.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
I'm the master now. We're in the service. Back to the Sunday Rewind with Tom and Mike on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
He's Mike Melby, Tom Stevens here. It's Husker Rewind every Sunday from 5 to 7 when we don't get interrupted by Broncos football, but they played earlier today, right? Yeah, they played. I know they won. Broncos win versus Jacksonville. That's right. That was the game in London this week where the Broncos played football. Nebraska played in Lincoln, Nebraska, of course, versus Illinois Saturday night, and they fall at the hands of the Illini and Brett Bielema 26-9 as we welcome in Sean Callahan of Husker Online, presented by On3. Hi, Sean. How are you? I hope he's there. Is he there? Did we lose him? Are you there, Sean? Now let me try it one more time. Are you there?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
sorry about that.
Hung up on me when you switched me over.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm a technician that's still working on the skills there. As Sean joins us. You saw the game. Nebraska physically dominated the line of scrimmage again, and when Casey Thompson went down, they fall at the hands of Illinois 26-9. And we wonder, maybe if Mickey could get to 6, he could somehow win this job. What are the odds in your mind that Nebraska can get to 6 wins for Mickey Joseph?
Oh, it's going to be pretty dang tough. I mean, I think they're 11-point dogs Saturday. They're going to be 20-some, 30-some point dogs at Michigan. Wisconsin's going to be favored. Iowa will be favored. I mean, you're asking a team that's going to be underdog probably in all 4 of these remaining games to win 3 of the 4, which in just a parlay world, you'd win a lot of money if you put that bet in. So it's an underdog bet to go that route. And, we don't know even for sure if Trev was thinking along those lines. He might have been. Trev may already have his guy lined up. I think that still remains the X factor. What is the search firm? Where's Trev Alwards? Where are they at in this process? And they're not going to let anyone know. I mean, that's how these things work. And I think we kind of just assume Mickey definitely has a shot at it and still might. But we don't really know that even at this point. And it doesn't have a very good feel the rest of the way, especially if there's injury questions around Casey Thompson.
Sean Callahan from Husker Online, presented by On3, joining us here on the Husker Rewind on 93.7 The Ticket. Sean, I want to ask you a little bit about recruiting, because Mickey came out and he said, whether or not we're going to be the staff next year, it's unknown, but I can promise you right now, we are going to leave this place better than we found it. How difficult is it for the kids that are, I mean, we know it's tough for the coaches to go out and say, I can't promise you I'm going to be there, but they're going to lay out the positives of coming to the University of Nebraska. I'm going to flip it over and ask you, how is it for the kids right now? And what's it like being recruited by a school who has a staff full of coaches that may not be there next year?
Yeah, it's interesting because I do think there's a lot of in-state guys in this class already, and that helps because most of those kids are committed in Nebraska, not a coach. And that's how you should go about recruiting. You should commit more to the school than the coach, because a coach staying your whole career, the odds of that happening aren't high. And spots are at a premium with the transfer portal. A lot of kids, unless they're really, really premier recruits, aren't really in the market to risk their spot in a class. It's, a lot of people fill up in June and July, and right now they're not necessarily trying to take a lot of guys unless they know, like, yep, this is a really good guy we want to have. I do think there's been a few guys approached in this class, but they've been able to hang on to everybody and add Malachi Coleman, which has helped. But the reality is, I think there's going to be quite a bit of shakeup here in the coming weeks, and I'm sure they'll lose a guy or two, but they're going to gain a bunch more. It's going to be a wild ride, no matter how you look at it.
Sean Callahan of Husker Online, presented by On3. It was not a big surprise when Bo Pelini was announced head coach. Big surprise when Bill Callahan or Mike Riley was announced as the head coach. No surprise that it was Scott Frost. Are we going to be surprised by the names that show up and maybe ultimately the guy that gets the job at Nebraska?
It feels that way, doesn't it? I mean, It really does have a feel that, this thing is going to be really a name we're not ready for. More of a Mike Riley type feel in terms of way surprised. When I think on that Mike Riley, when he was announced, it was kind of one of those things you remember where you're at. It was so out of left field. I was in Beatrice at a restaurant that's not even open anymore, giving a speech.
John Gaskins,
we found that out driving down. People was going out to Fremont, and we learned that he was the coach. And I get the sense that's going to happen on this one. But Iowa game will be Friday, and that coach probably won't be named or announced or leaked until Saturday sometime the next day. It's going to go quick though. There's not a lot of time to haggle, knowing how nuts December 5th is going to be. The month of December will be the craziest month we've experienced. Probably when you mix in full throttle NIL with full throttle transfer portal recruiting and coaching changes. It's going to be wild. December 5th in that period, you have to have your things ready to go, because you could have a lot of things happen to your football team if you're not ready.
Sean, I want to ask you, so I want to stick with the coaching topic here. Do you think, because you joke about we all know where we were, and I do. As soon as you said that, I'm like, I was sitting at my desk, and I remember when I saw the tweet.
I was on the air with John Gaskins doing
a
show here on the Ticket from 11 to 2, and I went nuts thinking, this is crazy. This can't be real.
Well,
this can't be the guy they're going with.
The first thing I did was double check the calendar to see if it was April 1st.
Yeah.
But Sean, the words uttered, I'll leave one of the words out. But the words uttered by most in Husker Nation were, "Are you kidding me?"
Yeah.
Is it going to be an "Are you kidding me" good or bad?
Yeah, I think they're in a much better place. I think where they're at right now, like with this job, you've got the Big Ten money, and if you're in the Big Ten or the SEC, you're all, if you're in one of those 32 jobs, you're already at an advantage over the rest of the 131 teams in college football right now. The NIL in Nebraska is going to be top notch with the two collectives running, but particularly the 1890 initiative, fully funded by the Pete family in Lincoln and run by Matt Davison and Joe Seelig. That's going to give you a huge advantage with what you're doing in the new facilities. So I think this job, as it's presented with all of those elements, it's never been more attractive compared to maybe the last few times. I do think when Bill Callahan came in, it was an attractive job because they were just, 3 years removed from playing in the Rose Bowl for the national championship when 2004 rolled around, and they were only like 7 years removed from winning the title. So I think at that time it was probably more attractive. when you look at the distance between championships. But now with all the other added things, you're going to give whoever takes this job anything possible they need to win with all the things I just mentioned.
Sean Callahan of Husker Online, presented by On3. So it feels like the stock market every week. For a while we all thought, oh, it's going to be Matt Campbell, and now they've lost 5 in a row. So maybe it's not Matt Campbell, or maybe it's not Lance Leipold because Kansas has lost 3 in a row, or Oklahoma State, who wants Gundy, and they're coming off the loss to Kansas State. They just get that. How fans think. What names to you make most sense for Nebraska right now?
I wish I had a great read, but I think the obvious ones are still up there. Mark Stoops at Kentucky, Dave Doran, Kansas City native at North Carolina State. I think he's long looked at this job, and I think he's a great coach. Bill O'Brien naturally is going to be mentioned. Lance Leipold, I think Chris Kleiman. You can go down the line of people out there. That's kind of where I start in the conversation right now, and I'm sure there's other names that I'm not even thinking about. I do think Luke Fickell, he should be included, but I just have a hard time thinking he'd go there because he turned down Michigan State already. But maybe with the landscape and the way things have changed, he's all on board. But maybe now that they're in the Big 12, he really likes it. The fact that the Big 12 is going to have a path to the playoff every year, maybe he wants to keep staying at Cincinnati. So there's a lot of guys like Luke Fickell that you would consider a home run. It just is Luke Fickell going to leave when he's turned down multiple jobs? Dave Aranda is somebody that everybody has continued to mention, but he kind of falls in that stock market of he won, then he lost, and he won, and he lost, and it's almost an unhealthy game that we play every week. Like, oh, he lost, he's out. Oh, he won, he's up. And like I said earlier, Trev might already know what he's going to do at this point, and is not really looking at obviously week to week wins and losses.
Hey, Sean, I want to ask you about a comment that Trev made when he announced that Scott Frost had been let go. He made the comment that he's not making this hire to win the press conference of the hire. Did that give you any inkling as to was he trying to foreshadow something, or was it just simply a statement where he's like, look, I don't care who the latest guy is. I'm going to hire who I think's the best person for the job. Or do you think there was was that just him quietly foreshadowing something?
I just think he was making a statement. I don't think he was foreshadowing necessarily anything, because I don't know on September 10th that he knew he was firing Scott Frost on September 11th. So it's really hard, for you to think that he had all of that already in a row. Because I do think if they would have beaten Georgia Southern, he wouldn't have fired Scott Frost. And they were pretty dang close to still winning that game for as bad as they played. They just needed to get a stop at the end. And I don't know if they would have fired him. And so that even makes that more intriguing at that point, because what happens if Scott Frost would have beat Georgia Southern and then beat Rutgers and Indiana like Mickey? But obviously the Oklahoma game could have got him fired the next week. It could have been just as bad the next week. So it's really hard to say Trev's thought process, and where he's at. But he's got a search firm, and I think they're probably doing their best to keep him up to speed on everything.
Well, he did give a few clues away, I thought, Sean Callahan, Husker Online, that he wants a guy that doesn't necessarily have a bunch of hobbies, doesn't play golf. That kind of tells you something.
You're out of the job race, Tom.
That's right. Because I was really being considered there for a while. But he doesn't want a guy that spends any time really on the golf course, that he wants a physical football team. He talked about football still being a gladiator sport. Does that point to anybody on your list? A lot of people are going right to Brett Bielema because that's the latest thing, but Brett Bielema is not coming here, right?
Yeah. No, he's not coming here. Yeah, I think Illinois will do whatever they have to keep him now. Josh Whitman finally has a football coach. They've had some bad ones at Illinois the last few times around. You think about the 12 years we've played in the Big Ten now in Nebraska, Illinois, this is far and away the best they've been. And they've got an Illinois native, Brett Bielema, coaching them, and he's got a role in there. I just can't imagine him leaving, because Nebraska, whatever they would offer, I think Illinois would match, and he would stay there. So Another name I didn't mention or forgot to mention was like Kyle Whittingham. I do think he was somebody early on in the discussion that was thrown out there. And, with the uncertainties of the Pac-12, is he, would this be an opportune time for him to look elsewhere? I think he's another name. Trev's got a real chance to hit a home run here. I think there's a lot of good names because of all the things I mentioned earlier that are going to get the attention of a lot of these guys out there.
Thank you for saying that there's a lot of home runs out there. I have heard several people that go, well, this is a horrible year to hire a coach. There's nobody good available. And it's like, well, time out. Why does he need to be available? If Lincoln Riley can go to USC from Oklahoma, you don't have to be available. Right. So thank you for saying that there's a lot of home runs out there, because I think there is too.
Like Brian Kelly, leaving Notre Dame, and LSU, take away that Florida State loss. They've been a huge success this year.
Yep. If you were to make a prediction about Mickey Joseph, is he still on this staff next year?
I think if they can and he wants to, I believe he will be. But there's a lot of other unknown elements. What other job offers can Mickey get elsewhere, whether they're assistant jobs or whatnot? And what's his relationship like with the new guy they hire? Will they hit it off? Does he know the guy? I just think it's too hard to say for sure. But in a perfect world, I think you need to probably keep at least one or two of those guys on the staff regardless to keep some roster retention, because there are some players that might just jump ship if you bring in 10 new coaches.
Aside from Mickey, you said there's you want to try to keep a couple. What other two would you say would be the most important to try to keep?
It's really hard, but I think Brian Applewhite, naturally with Anthony Grant and AJ Allen, he brings a lot of value right there. I have a hard time thinking any of the UCF Frost guys would be in contention. I think Bill Bush, maybe a special teams coordinator again, is somebody that would make sense too. But once again, a lot will depend on who they hire. Trev can't tell the new coach, you need to keep the guy and that guy. That he can kind of lay things out for the new guy, but that guy will ultimately still make the decision. And we've seen transitions here. When Riley was fired, not one guy was retained. Not one person. The only person really in the back office that was retained was Kenny Wilhite. Other than that, and he was with the Pelini staff too. So we've seen complete wipeouts. We've seen some guys kept on board. So it's all over the board how these things get done in Nebraska, where in terms of people being kept or everybody cleaned out.
Sean Callahan of Husker Online, presented by On3. Are you getting along with Sipple okay, or is he eating your food and sitting in your chair all the time when you come into the office?
We're having a lot of fun on the road, and it's been an experience traveling to some of these road games. And we've been close friends, best friends for over 20 years, and to be working together now, it's been just a blast. And he's such a talented writer and has such a handle on things. And Robin, with what he brings on basketball and all the day-to-day things, we just got a great team of guys, and it's just fun to go to work every day when you work with guys like Sip and Robin.
Yep.
Robin's out in Colorado, by the way. I think they're getting murdered pretty bad by the Buffs in this charity game.
What is the score? Have you seen
Actually, Nebraska's come back. They were down 24-7. They're now down 31-24.
Okay, not bad.
Okay, so they cut into it.
Of course, very talented staff. Stephen M. Sipple has joined Husker Online. Always had Robin Washington. Of course, Sean Callahan. Always read your stuff. It's great stuff. Thanks, Sean. We'll talk to you soon.
Hey, thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
There you go. Sean Callahan of HuskerOnline.com. Let's get to break. Come back with more. He's Mike Melby. I'm Tim. Not Tim. I haven't changed my name. Tom Stevens. We together are Husker Rewind every Sunday, 5 to 7.
Steve's Garage Doors and Services is under new management, but has the same great service as before. If your current garage door seems outdated or isn't working properly, call their new number at 402-480-2840 to schedule service or get a new door ordered. Steve's can repair most types of garage doors and can always point you in the right direction to get the job done. Give Steve's Garage Doors and Services a call today at 402-480-2840. That's 402-480-2840.
What happens when students come to school every day on time and ready to learn? They improve academically, become more responsible, manage their time well, and learn the value of education. Whether your child is starting preschool or preparing to graduate, family support and a great attitude towards education is important. Help your child come to school every day ready to learn. Make this the best school year yet.
Sponsored by the Nebraska State Education Association, aired by the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Volunteers give their time, energy, and resources, and they ask for nothing in return. The Step Forward Awards ensures they're recognized for all they do. Serve Nebraska thanks all the nominators, nominees, and sponsors for helping to honor their dedication. The Lifetime Achievement Award is the most prestigious award in the state given for volunteerism. Serve Nebraska is proud to award this year's Lifetime Achievement Award to Henry Potter of Willow Island. He's being honored for founding L2 for Kids. L2 for Kids is entirely volunteer run and works towards boosting children's self-esteem by providing new clothes and shoes for their first day of school. In 2021, they purchased new clothes for 967 Central Nebraska students. Congratulations to all the 2022 Step Forward Award honorees. Sponsored by Serve Nebraska, aired by the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
More of the Sunday Rewind is coming your way next.
60% of the time, it works every time.
On 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome back. He's Mike Melby. I'm Tom Stevens. It's Husker Rewind every Sunday from 5 until 7. Huskers making a little bit of a comeback. You know, that was probably their best win last year, their exhibition win over Colorado, because we got excited. That was really one of their best performances. They really shot the ball well in that game. The ball moved well, but it was an exhibition win from a Colorado team who the previous year had gone to the NCAA tournament. So you were thinking that's a really good win. The hype is true. Nebraska's good. So maybe now that they're losing to Colorado, you take it just as seriously. Not at all. I mean, no. I don't think this means anything.
No, they were down by 17. They've cut it to 7, 33-26 now with about 2.5 to play.
Let's get to the grades. It could be an A, a B, or a C. In some cases, it has been worse than any of those. We'll go all the way to a D or an F. No E's in the formula, but we do the grades after every Husker game. I don't think we did after the Oklahoma game. I think we just skipped it.
Yeah, I think that was one that we went. Yeah, it was just an F. And, hey, guess what? They have a bye week and they play Indiana.
And I don't think this was an F performance by any means for Nebraska football, but there were a lot of things that went awry Saturday night in that 26-9 loss to Illinois. Nebraska could not run the ball. The run game, I gave an F. Anthony Grant gets 61 yards, 12 carries. Nebraska 60 net yards for the entire game. That's the only time this season they've been held under 100. And Rutgers had a pretty good rush defense, but Nebraska's run game was not pretty.
No, absolute F on that. I'm puzzled again how we can scheme a guy wide open to run a pass route, but we can't have a blocking scheme that will give a running back a lane.
I've heard the phrase, and I've heard it from DP on this station. You get what you demand. I mean, it's an old cliche in sports. Those teams that demand that you run and get good at running the football, that's what they're going to be good at because it's what they demand. Mark Whipple wants to be good, really good at the throw game, and he's pretty good at it. I mean, there were some really creative plays. Getting Chancellor Brewington open for that screen pass for the 46-yard gain, I thought was pretty good. But in the run game overall, it was not good. And there's no way to go other than an F for me. In the pass game, before Casey Thompson went out of that game, he was 7 of 15, 172. He did have 2 picks and 1 TD. The second one led to a hand injury. He had that great pass with a lot of touch to Travis Vokalek, who went 56 yards for a touchdown. But then he got injured. A floating pass. That was on first down too. And a couple plays previous, Ramir Johnson, if he catches it, you wonder what happens if that changes the complexion of the game. But once he went out, it was over. because Chuba Purdy just had a bad day, threw that pass across the middle when Nebraska was in scoring territory. Nebraska throws for 188. I give Nebraska D in the pass game.
I was going to say F, and I'm like, you can't say F because of what they did with Casey Thompson. And again, it's just brilliant scheming. And it's also kind of weird because Ramir Johnson dropping that pass, it was almost flashbacks to what you would expect a player to do when Coach Frost was here.
Yeah,
it was. And Ramir's a guy who I watched the game last night. I was a little busy out in the driveway and in the garage, but listened to the entire game, the entire broadcast with on the network. And it seemed as though Casey Thompson was off a little bit as well, though.
I thought he missed some throws for sure.
Yeah.
I think that
but still,
he might have been a little bit rattled by the fact that they were taking away his best player, Trey Palmer, who had 1 catch for 1 yard. I think, and then he was open a few times, and you kick yourself. It's like the layup that you have in basketball. You miss it because you're thinking about it too much. It's almost, I know I'm not going to get many opportunities against Illinois to do this. I better make this throw, and then you overthrow it.
I'm pretty confident Jawan Gary must be thinking a lot because I've watched him miss like 7 layups.
Yeah. Speaking of this, we had this earlier, but this is Mickey Joseph talking about Ramir and the drop pass.
Yes. Ramir, and to the kid credit, kid caught the ball all week. We repped that play at least 10 to 12 times, and he didn't drop one, and he dropped it today. But I'm not going to say one play lost the game for that kid, because we need that kid to play for us.
I'm not very confident that Nebraska would have won the game had Ramir caught that ball.
No.
I don't think they would have, but you never know how a one play, and it feels like Nebraska, they have to be almost perfect to win any game. And not having that play, and a few others, obviously several others. But, right after that, Casey gets injured. So maybe you do say it changed the momentum of the game anyway.
Oh, I think it did tremendously.
Yeah.
But again, overall offense, I think when you put it all together overall, it's just an F.
Yeah, it's not
D-.
very good. I probably would go D-. They had 248 in passing, but none really after half. I mean, it was just they melted against the run. Chase Brown had 149 yards, but it took him 32 carries to get there. It wasn't like they just gashed Nebraska. At the half, he only had 80 yards on 15 carries, and Nebraska shut him down after the first quarter for 14 yards. They do what they do, and eventually they're going to be able to run the ball. But I thought Nebraska, compared to Purdue, was decent stopping the run.
Yeah, and that was what was so surprising to me. I'll be honest. I truly thought that Illinois was going to run for 350 yards. I just thought all they would do is just continually just over and over right up the middle and just dominate us all day long. And to Bill Bush's credit, man, he's a guy as well that's got some talent when it comes to scheming and X's and O's and getting through to players. And, you simplify things for some of the guys to where they maybe are not thinking as much, but you don't simplify it enough to where it's easy to play against.
Right.
And I got to tip the cap because I thought it could have been a lot worse than it was.
Yeah, I did too, as well, especially what we saw with just, teams running up and down the field and not being able to get off the field on defense. I thought that would be a big problem. It wasn't necessarily. Nebraska had, 4 straight stops after that opening drive, 6 for Illinois. So it wasn't all disastrous, but Chase Brown did have his 9th straight 100-yard game. Against the pass, I gave Nebraska a D. Tommy DeVito, I should say, 20 of 22 for 179. He top 10 in the country in completion percentage. He did have 2 TDs. Isaiah Williams had a nice night, 93 yards and a touchdown, and Chris Brown had a touchdown as well, catching the ball.
Yeah, but at the same time, how many passes does Tommy DeVito throw that the distance the ball travels is over 12 feet?
Never.
Okay. So,
never.
So the whole accuracy thing, I could throw at over 50% if I threw the same pass as he did.
They throw a lot of screens, a lot of bubble screens. Chase Brown just out of the backfield when he scored his touchdown. Isaiah Williams just using his speed against Nebraska's defense. But you know what? It's actually refreshing to see a team play like that. And most of the teams in the Big Ten West play like that without a quarterback, because I'm sick of talking about Nebraska's quarterback every single game. When was the last time you just said, you know what? They ran the ball, they up and down the field, and didn't even notice how the quarterback played, because that's the Big Ten West, except for Nebraska.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's the offense we've been trying to run.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. So,
what'd you give against the pass?
Against the pass, it was a solid D-.
Yeah, okay. Special teams, they were okay. They had a punt blocked. Timmy Bleakroad hit a 26-yard field goal. Bushimi did have 6 punts for 48 yards. One of his better putting nights of the year. And they did a decent job. There was an 18-yard return against them. Decent job covering kicks and punts. So I gave him a C+.
I was going to say I was going to give him B-, C+. I was kind of torn. The block punt probably drops it down into the C+.
And management, play calling, there wasn't anything crazy. I just thought Whipple could have maybe done a little bit better of job of having a package of plays for Purdy that he could execute, because he didn't get comfortable at all. He just didn't play well. When Casey went out, it was over. But I did like the screen pass to Chancellor Brewington. I thought the vocal pass was pretty good. Trey Palmer, 1 catch. Ramirez drop. If they complete that, who knows? But I gave him a C-, something like that.
Yep, C- for me as well.
Yeah.
Just one that you're just like, yeah.
Yeah, nobody did great. I saw your Cowboys won again today. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's remarkable.
Do you care about the Cowboys anymore? You don't seem to have a lot of passion.
I'm a Cowboys fan, which means they're either going to go 15-2 and win the NFC East and go in as the 1 seed with the bye, and they're going to get beat at home in the technically second round of the playoffs.
Right.
Or on the off chance that they win one game, they'll get shut out like 30-0 in the NFC Championship game. So they have no shot. No shot at all.
Ezekiel Elliott went down in that game, but they didn't have any problems because Tony Pollard was great. He had 131 yards, 3 TDs as they beat Chicago 49-29. So your Cowboys, they're not as good as they're in a tough division this year. The Eagles might be the best team in football.
Yeah,
I think they are.
Yep.
The only loss my Vikings have is to the Eagles, and the Eagles dominated them early on in the season. And since then, the Vikings have won 6 in a row. I don't know what to do with the Vikings when they're good, because I didn't expect them to be good and nobody did. And now they're kind of good. So I don't know how to feel. I almost feel better when I could be more negative about my Vikings.
It makes sense, though, because I'm a little bit the same way with my Cowboys. And I will tell you this, I don't mind Ezekiel Elliott going down. I think Tony Pollard's the better back.
Yeah.
And I think that having Elliott and needing to feed his ego as well as make sure that he's happy with touches and blah, blah. I think that's been a detriment to that team. I think Tony Pollard would be a Pro Bowl running back if Ezekiel Elliott was not on the Cowboys.
I didn't have a problem with the Cowboys paying Dak Prescott $36 million, whatever they paid him. But I thought as good as Ezekiel was when they re-signed him, they gave him way too much money, knowing that he was going to decline in less than a year and a half, and he has.
Oh,
he's just not the same guy that he used to be, and that's what happens to running backs. They get beat up, and the shelf life is just not long enough to justify the kind of money that he got. But more power to him, he got it.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can't fault a guy for getting paid.
No, I never do. Because I've never gotten paid before. But I love doing this show. It is Husker Rewind. We have something that we call Nebraska Gems, and we do it as often as we can. We talk to great Nebraska people with great stories. You've just had interview after interview. Talk about some of the stuff that's up there for you.
Well, right now, the one that just dropped on Thursday was with Ronnie Willis, and everybody's like, oh, I know Ronnie. No, you don't, because Ronnie Willis is not somebody that's super famous that everybody knows, but Ronnie Willis is a paranormal investigator. She's a ghost hunter. And I figured, you know what? Halloween's just around the corner. So I sat down with Ronnie and we went over. She runs Lincoln Historical Ghost Quest, I believe is what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And they go do ghost tours. And I've been a part of one of her ghost tours. We had some interesting things happen. And not every time does stuff happen, but she explained some experiences she's had, why she does it, etc. And for those that do not know the story of Billy's Restaurant and it being haunted,
Billy's is haunted? I knew the state capitol was.
Oh, yeah. I worked in the state capitol. I've actually had some experiences there. Yeah. But at Billy's Restaurant, they were doing an investigation there and something pretty chilling happened.
Wow.
And then the owner had something happen. Not during that tour, but
Does it usually involve somebody that just lived a long life and then they died there?
That could be, or it could. Who knows what causes?
Some guy just like some guy that didn't like where he used to live, just decided to
may have
to come into your house. I don't know, but I always enjoy our interviews on Nebraska Gems. Just had James Ballard a couple of times. We've had obviously John Chapo. Speaking of the zoo, the children's zoo, of course, does Boo at the Zoo. So I'm sure families continue to go there in droves. I didn't realize this. Second largest tourist attraction in Nebraska is the Lincoln Children's Zoo.
Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's incredible. So NebraskaGems.com, go there.
Another one I want to let you know about, though, because it's recorded and I just got to get it polished up and drop it, is with the former director of the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission, Rex Amack.
Okay.
He was there for 24 years.
He's a legend.
He is. He's the man responsible for, he was the director of the first agency in the state of Nebraska to embrace the internet and get a web page.
Wow.
He is the man who essentially made sure Eugene T. Mahoney State Park became what it is today. Unbelievably influential man.
Yeah.
Man, I'm never trying to say two big words back to back again.
You'll try it again.
Anyway, fantastic interview with him.
And that'll drop sometime this
That'll
week.
drop this next week. And then I believe, rumor has it, a longtime Lincoln Radio legend will be joining.
Yes.
Maybe
yes.
Tom Stevens.
I'm anxious to interview Joe Scar, famous for Joe and Timo, and to be talking to him tomorrow. And we'll get that edited and out to the folks within the next week or so. So NebraskaGems.com, lots of great interviews. Check them out. The Big Ten Blitz. We like to go through every Big Ten game and then rank the teams 14-1. Who's rising, who's falling? There seems like half the league is pretty much the same. It'll be interesting, though, to compare your rankings to mine. He's Mike Melby. I'm Tom Stevens. This is Sunday Husker Rewind.
For all of your concrete needs, call Kramer Concrete at 402-560-0670. Do you have a cracked driveway or sidewalk? Are you in need of an egress window or an awesome-looking new patio with stamped concrete? If so, call Tim Kramer at 402-560-0670 to get a free estimate. With over 20 years of experience, the Kramer Concrete staff specializes in concrete replacement, egress windows, and concrete patio designs. Kramer Concrete is the low-cost solution to all of your concrete problems. Call Tim today at 402-560-0670.
Finally, a good reason to have a smart house. Just say, Alexa, play 93.7 The Ticket, and we'll magically start playing. How's it work? Nobody knows. Don't ask questions.
Start your Sundays off right with Jeff and Nicole Essink on Fitness Fanatics. Jeff and Nicole discuss health and wellness, how to achieve fitness goals, and more through the life of gym owners and gym goers. It's Fitness Fanatics from 9 to 11 a.m. on Sundays on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Hey, you got any gum?
Yeah, check my backpack.
What's this?
Oh, that's naloxone. It can reverse an opioid overdose. I decided to always keep it on me after my friend almost died. It saved his life.
I'm so sorry. That makes me want to have it with me too.
You totally should. Check the pharmacy. It was actually really easy to get and it's easy to use.
I definitely will. Thanks.
Paid for by the CDC. Sponsored by Nebraska DHHS. Aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Into the building for the first time after the shooting. It was crippling, but it had to be preserved.
In response to the Pulse nightclub shooting that affected the LGBTQ community, Barbara Poma, owner of Pulse, founded the One Pulse Foundation to honor Pulse victims and survivors.
If you're an ally of this community, speak out. There are more of us together than apart. It is the power of love in its rawest form.
Join the fight for LGBTQ acceptance. Learn how at lovehasnolabels.com. Brought to you by Love Has No Labels and the Ad Council.
This message is for Karina, our mom who finished her high school diploma at age 28. Hi, Mom. It's Emmettith and Nicholas. Congratulations on getting your diploma. You worked so hard and have taught us so much. We love you.
When you graduate, they graduate. Finish your high school diploma for you and for them. Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free and supportive adult education centers near you. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
This is Sunday Rewind.
Take it back now, y'all.
On 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Now, here are your hosts, Tom Stevens and Mike Melby.
Welcome back to the Husker Rewind. I am Mike Melby. That is Tom Stevens, the legend. 38 plus years in radio here in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Has it been that long?
Yeah, you're old. Man, are you old?
Really? Yeah,
good looking man, but you're old.
That's right. I'm a very good looking man who just happens to be old. As far as you know. How is Nebraska basketball doing
They're down by 7 at halftime. They were down by 17 at one point. Everything you've heard from Fred Hoiberg, that this team is going to be scrappy. They're going to play defense. They're going to rebound better. They've given up like a dozen offensive rebounds from what I've seen. That has not been great, but you see a lot better effort.
Rebounding's been a problem?
Today against Colorado. Yeah, inside. Colorado's they've got a lot of offensive rebounds, but they play D, they play hard, and they play ugly because their shot selection is fantastic. The shots they are building a tall wall with all these bricks.
My prediction is they're going to remind you a little bit of 2014-15 Nebraska basketball.
Yeah.
I think they're going back to Tim Miles type of basketball.
Yeah.
I'm hoping and that's sometimes what happens when you have really long guys who could play defense at a high level, but they can't shoot. Then you have to shorten the game.
Yep.
It feels like Nebraska may go down that road, at least experiment down that road at some point this season and probably very early in the season. It's time for the Blitz. We do it every week.
The Big Ten Blitz. The Big Ten Blitz. The Big Ten Blitz. The Big Ten Blitz.
Going through every Big Ten game. Let's start with Ohio State, the number 2 ranked Buckeyes over Penn State. It was a close game going into the fourth quarter, but Ohio State pulled away 44-31. CJ Stroud, nice game, 26 of 33 for 354. But the star of this game was JT Tuiamotlo. 2 picks, including a pick 6. He had a strip sack, former 5-star from Oregon. He had 2 sacks. He had a forced fumble, recovered fumble, 2 picks, and a pick 6. That's a pretty good day. And if he didn't have that kind of day, I'm not sure Ohio State would have won the football game.
I'm right there with you.
It was a close game going into the fourth quarter, but he really completely turned it around.
Yeah, there's 30 points scored between the two teams in the first 3 quarters. And then there winds up being 45 points scored in the fourth quarter between Ohio State, Penn State. But Ohio State outscored Penn State 28-17.
JT Tuiamotlo, I think is how it's pronounced.
Tuiamotlo.
Anyway, he's a 5-star. He's 6'4", 270. We're not trying to mispronounce it. I think it's.
I phonetically did it, so I wouldn't mispronounce it, and I can't even pronounce it properly.
But I got to practice. He was definitely the star of the game, and Ohio State remains undefeated now at 8-0.
And Minnesota shuts out Rutgers 31-0. Mo Ibrahim ran for 159 and 3 scores to lead the Gophers. And another game that we are starting to see a lot more of, and that is this lopsided time of possession. Minnesota held the ball for over 41 minutes. Rutgers turned the ball over 3 times. That didn't help. And they looked as anemic on offense as Iowa normally does. They only gained 134 yards of total offense.
Yeah, I mean, they shortened the game. It's just what you said. The recipe is throughout the Big Ten West, and Michigan does it to a certain extent as well. Minnesota now 5-3, had lost 3 in a row. We're on a skid. But Mo Ibrahim runs for 36 times for 259 in that one and becomes the all-time touchdown leader at Minnesota. So that's kind of cool. Iowa over Northwestern. Iowa, what do you need to get well? You need to play Northwestern unless you're Nebraska. Nebraska has to look back at that game and think, man, we should have won that game because Minnesota looked the best they have all year offensively, and it's because they were playing Northwestern. 33-14, Spencer Petras, 21 of 30 for 220 and a TD. Iowa rushes for 178. That's an offensive explosion for the Hawkeyes.
Well, it's first time over 30 points this year.
It's sad how bad. And of course, Kirk Ferentz had that question this week. Are you going to fire your son? And he was really cranky about that. But I wonder how those discussions go when they get home at night. And Brian just saying, Mom, tell Dad he can't fire me. And that's probably how that conversation goes every night in the living room. Yeah, at the dining room.
In Ann Arbor, Michigan 29, Michigan State 7. Aside from the fight in the tunnel after the game, J.J. McCarthy was his normal serviceable self for the Wolverines. He threw for 167 yards and a score. He ran for 50 more on the ground. Blake Corum did what Blake Corum does, 177 yards on the ground and a touchdown. Michigan's D held Sparty to 252 yards. And again, Michigan held the ball for 40 minutes of the game.
Yeah. I mean, Iowa would play that same style. You mentioned Minnesota. They do it. Certainly Illinois wants to shorten the game.
And Michigan.
And Wisconsin's always done that. I mean, Wisconsin was probably the first team in the West to really perfect that style of football. That's it's like 1960s, here we come, Big Ten West. But that's what the Big Ten West does. Is throw
3 yards
and
a cloud of dust.
That's right. And there's not even any dust at Memorial Stadium anymore. I mean, there hasn't been for years, really. It's AstroTurf.
Yeah, 3 yards of those stupid little rubber pellets.
That's right. So Michigan continues undefeated now, the fourth-ranked Wolverines on a collision path. Obviously on a collision path with Ohio State. If I were to tell you that Michigan's the better team, what would you say to that?
No. Have you seen Ohio State?
Yeah, but they didn't look great yesterday.
They didn't, but that's a game that'll be one of the few times I'm looking forward to watching.
Michigan beat them last year.
Michigan, Ohio State. Because I just don't like either team. But this is one where you can not like either team and just simply enjoy a great college football game.
Yeah, I think Ohio State's probably better fitted for the college football playoff. They've got a really good defense. Michigan is more of a throwback team, but they've beaten Ohio State in that head-to-head competition last year. It'll be interesting to see who wins that game. I think they're really going to be close this particular year. That's it, right?
That is.
There were only 4 games in the Big Ten, so now is the time where we rank the teams at number 14. Obviously, Northwestern is they're just terrible. There's no other way to say other than they're just really a bad football team. They lose 33-14 to Iowa, and now they host Ohio State this week. Ohio State will just call the score. They just call it in, and they decide to just not play the game.
Aside from C.J. Stroud's Heisman candidacy, do you even play him?
Well, you do, just because there's a thing called respect. I mean, all coaches have it. They respect the other team.
Granted.
Yeah, I would play him, but I would get him the heck out of there as fast as possible.
You're playing 2 quarters. If we put up 35 points, 75 points, you're done.
Speaking of that, didn't you think it was a little weird that Chase Brown was playing that late in the ball game when the game was completely over against Nebraska?
Yeah.
I would not have been playing him.
No.
I thought that was a big mistake by Bielema, but I'm often surprised by coaches playing their star players in games that are handily won. Indiana, I have, and I think most people would, at 13. They had a bye this week, and then they host Penn State next week. But they're 3-5. Tom Allen probably won't be their coach next year.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Tom Allen was actually I had Tom Allen being the first Big Ten coach to get fired this year.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did. I had him in the pool, and it was my choice. I didn't just draw him out.
It was Scott Frost. Have you heard? Scott Frost was the first one to get fired, and then Paul Chryst was another guy. I mean, you would have said, that makes sense that Scott Frost gets fired this year because you knew it was an ultimatum year that he had to win at least 6 games. So you're not surprised by that. Paul Chryst, if I would have told you that before the season, I would have laughed at you. Yeah, you would have said you're a complete lunatic. You're a nutball. He's not getting fired, but he has got fired. And I would still say the odds say that Jim Leonhard takes that gig. But we'll talk more about Wisconsin as they're farther down our list. At number 12, I have Rutgers. They lost to Minnesota 31-0. It's been a long time since Minnesota has shut somebody out, but I was surprised to learn that. But they did this weekend. That was Minnesota football. But they get to host the Wolverines next week, so that'll be a tough task.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. I am stunned that Greg Schiano, because I have Rutgers at number 12 as well. This is so odd. We normally agree on the top 2 or 3 and the bottom 2, but after that, it's always way off the board. But I'm right there with you at number 12 with Rutgers. I thought Greg Schiano would have this team playing better. I am stunned at how poor quarterback play he gets. I don't know. I don't
thought
get
they
it.
would run the football better than they do as well. Usually those type of coaches, the Greg Schiano coaches, they demand that you run the football and you stop the run. They stop the run, but they can't run the football. And Vedral has had a really tough year this year. Nebraska, I've got them at number 11 after the 26-9 loss to Illinois. Of course, they host Minnesota this week. It's just been announced it'll be at 11 a.m. game on ESPN2. Announced or last night. Was it announced last night sometime?
I believe it was.
Yeah.
At number 11, I've got Michigan State. 1-4 in the conference, 3-5 overall. They weren't anywhere near in the game. They won the fight in the tunnel afterwards, but I just don't know.
Yeah. I don't either, but that game actually was – they couldn't score in the red zone, Michigan State. But that was a much closer game than 29-7. Michigan settled for a lot of field goals.
Okay, so next Saturday, Michigan State is in Champaign.
Yeah.
Like, that was a game that I thought could have been really interesting because I'm like, Biela may upset an undefeated Sparty there.
Yeah.
Or a one-loss Sparty. And instead, you have a one-loss Illinois hosting what's bordering on a smoldering dumpster fire in Michigan State.
Yeah, I think Michigan State, obviously they're not going to fire their coach. They just paid him $95 million. So Tucker's not going anywhere. And, you know, I think that they do what they did 2 years ago. They go back to the transfer portal and load up. I mean, Kenneth Walker is one of the better players in the NFL this year. They really miss him. They don't have a rushing game like that this year. It's not just because of their offensive line. At number 10, you had Michigan State at number 11.
Yep.
I have them at number 10.
You had Nebraska?
Yeah, I had Nebraska 11, and I had Michigan State at number 10.
And I got Nebraska at number 10.
Yeah, so there you go. I had Michigan State after their 29-7 loss. They do host Illinois. No, they're actually at Illinois this week, Michigan State.
Yep.
But don't forget, they have a win over Wisconsin. They have a much better win than Nebraska has on their schedule.
True.
You may say that Wisconsin's not very good, and they may not be very good, but I think the Wisconsin win for them is better than any win Nebraska has so far.
Oh, I would agree.
So you have
Nebraska at 10.
Nebraska at 10. At number 9, I have Iowa, 4-4 on the season. I don't know. They were over 300 yards, which is an offensive explosion for Iowa. They look good, but then you realize they were playing Northwestern. We'll find out more about Iowa this week. They were at Purdue.
Yeah, being at Purdue, that's going to be telltale. I can't imagine they score more than 13 points. I think they get a touchdown and a couple of field goals, and I think Purdue rolls in that one. I have Iowa at number 9 as well. 2-4 or 2-3, 4-4 overall. I don't know. The whole talk. Be thankful that we're not in Ames doing a sports talk show where it's just ad nauseum about, is Kirk going to retire? We can't afford to pay him $42 million to make him go away. Do they negotiate a settlement? And that's all that is literally for the rest of the year there.
Well, we'll have that discussion because we're going to rank our top coaches on the stock market report of this week. And it's for fun. People sometimes get so mad at us for picking a guy. He's never going to come here, or why you put that guy on the list and you put this guy on the list? Because it's fun, and nobody knows. We're all throwing darts on this stuff.
Yeah, normally after a couple of shots too.
That's right. At number 8, I've got Wisconsin. They had a bye week this week. They do host Maryland this week. They have that win over Purdue. They beat Purdue, but then they lost to Michigan State, so it's hard to figure them out. Jim Leonard, will he get the job? Paul Chryst is fired, but I've got them at number 8.
I do too. You and I compared notes beforehand. We never have these middle teams ranked the same, but I do. I have Wisconsin at 8 as well.
Yeah, it's throwing darts right now, but we'll find out. Maryland's a little higher on my list, but I don't think Maryland will beat Wisconsin this week. But at number 7, I've got Minnesota. That was a nice game for Minnesota. I know it was Rutgers. And Nebraskans don't value even their win over Rutgers, but it was impressive, 31-0 against a good Rutgers team. And they ran the ball. They followed the Big Ten West ingredients to win a football game. I think they're a solid team. At one time, I thought they were the best team in the East. I don't think that now, but they're a good team in Minnesota, and they're going to be tough to beat this week.
Same. I've got them at 7, same as you do. it's a weird matchup against Nebraska because I always thought that PJ Fleck needed to pay Scott Frost rent because he lived in his head. He really did. There was things that he did and things that he said that were purposeful to poke at Scott Frost, and Frost tried to do the same thing. But at the end of the day, it comes down to scoreboard, and PJ Fleck has scoreboard on Nebraska outside of the 1 year. I think it was Adrian's freshman year when he was like, that was Adrian's best game, 26 to 28 or something like that.
Right.
Incredible game.
52 to 28 or something like that.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Or no, I'm talking like Adrian Martinez passing wise. It was like 26 out of 28. It was unreal. But
he had a really good game.
I've got Minnesota same at 7, and I this Saturday's going to be interesting because what Minnesota team shows up, because the one that's been leaving the tracks in the last few weeks, it makes you wonder, does Nebraska find a way?
At number 6, I've got Maryland. They had a bye this week. They're at Wisconsin, so we'll know a lot more. I don't think they're going to go to Madison and win that game, but Maryland has been more physical this year. They've looked better, and they are 6-2. That's a solid football team.
I agree. At number 6, I've got Penn State.
Wow, that's way down the list.
Yeah, and part of it is when it comes time to make plays to win the ball game in big games, they just haven't done it a couple of times. And maybe I'm punishing them too much because, it was Ohio State. But I dropped him down to number 6, and I guess it's me giving a little bit more respect to a couple of schools and that I think they're playing better, and they every week they go out and they just make another convincing argument.
Oh, there you go. I've got Maryland number 6, and at number 5 I've got Purdue. It's hard to figure out the Boilermakers for me. That loss to Wisconsin is kind of a mystery. They do host Iowa this week. I think that Jeff Brom does get more out of his team than almost any coach in the West. They're 5-3. They have a chance to be bowl eligible, and I think they'll beat Iowa at home.
And at number 5 for me, I've got Purdue as well. I think this Saturday's game is going to be huge, and I think they put it on Kirk Ferentz in Iowa, and we'll see what happens after that because then, you got Purdue and Illinois going at it for the Big Ten West.
Iowa needs 2 more wins. It'll be interesting to see if, it'll come down to Nebraska, I think. I don't think Nebraska will be playing for bowl eligibility, but I think Iowa might be in that particular game. Number 4, I've got Illinois. I've had them, I think, the last 3 weeks at number 4, the 17th ranked team in the country. It was a workmanlike win over Nebraska. I thought in that way it was impressive. They weren't, overly talented, but their defense is for real. 26-9. And I've got Illinois. A lot of people would have them higher than I do.
And I do, because I have Maryland at number 4, 3-2, 6-2. You already talked about everything going on with them. I got to tip my cap. They're one of those teams that somehow, some way goes out and finds a way. They had a bye this week, and I think they come out, and I think they handle Wisconsin.
All right. Number 3, I've got Penn State, the 13th ranked team coming into the game with Ohio State on Saturday night. And it was a close game going to the fourth quarter. There's too many turnovers. And Ohio State happens to be really good, but they win that game 44-31. But Penn State now has lost 2, but to the best teams in the league for sure, with Michigan and Ohio State. But they're at Indiana this week, so they'll get well quick.
And my number 3 is actually the team that knocked off Nebraska over the weekend, Illinois. 4-1 in conference, 7-1 overall. And I just think Brett Bielema has got things rolling, and he may not. I don't know the remainder of their schedule. I don't know if they've got Michigan or Penn State.
They've got Michigan State this week. Michigan State this week.
That I think they win. I didn't look ahead to see if they play Michigan or Ohio State, but Illinois, could be a one-loss team in the Big Ten title game against either Ohio State or Michigan. But I've got them at number 3.
Okay. At number 2, I've got, of course, Michigan. Number 4 in the country, 29-7 over Michigan State. They're at Rutgers. So they kind of have a bye week. And, of course, at number 1, I've got Ohio State.
Imagine that. I have the same.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, I saw Sam McEwen, for instance. He had Michigan in his rankings at number 1, Ohio State at number 2.
Yeah. I'm not going to argue with Sam. That man knows what he's talking about.
Well, I
just disagree. I think Ohio State's the best team in the country.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, they've had the problem, Ohio State, with defense. This is a better defense than years past, even with 31 points given up. And They seem to have more of a commitment to run and they lost Garrett Nelson and Chris Olave, 2 first-round draft picks, and they're better this year.
Yeah.
At wide receiver.
I think they're more physical than they've been since Ryan Day took over. That's why I've got them still ahead of Michigan.
It'll be interesting to see where the Huskers are ranked when the polls come out. They were the number 1 team in the land. Of course, the loss to Wisconsin probably will move them back down after retaking number 1 from early in the season. We'll talk a little Husker volleyball. Of course, they sweep Maryland last night, coming off that loss to Wisconsin in front of 8,100 fans at the Devaney Center. Talk a little Husker volleyball with Tanya Taki. We do it every week, and we'll do it next on Husker Rewind.
For all of your concrete needs, call Kramer Concrete at 402-560-0670. Do you have a cracked driveway or sidewalk? Are you in need of an egress window or an awesome-looking new patio with stamped concrete? If so, call Tim Kramer at 402-560-0670 to get a free estimate. With over 20 years of experience, the Kramer Concrete staff specializes in concrete replacement, egress windows, and concrete patio design. Kramer Concrete is the low-cost solution to all of your concrete problems. Call Tim today at 402-560-0670.
There's nothing quite like the Mercado by Certified Piedmontese Beef. The Mercado offers unique ingredients you can't find anywhere else, open every day from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. The full-service butcher shop and retail store is wonderful for meat lovers with their exclusive certified Piedmontese beef and assorted sausages, plus other quality meats, including pork, chicken, and a wide range of the freshest seafood. Plus, every Friday from 11 to 2, the Mercado serves up the best lunch in town on their Friday Feast menu. Stop in at the Mercado today at 84th and Havelock or visit their website at cpmercado.com to see current deals.
Hi, Sean Callahan here for Koppel Chevrolet GMC, and things are cooking here in Louisville. We are really hitting on all cylinders right now, and deals are off the charts. We've got a lot more new 2022 and 2023 Chevrolet and GMC inventory than we've had in a long time. So make sure you check us out online, or do even better, stop on in the store and let us show you one in person. Our pre-owned lot is plumb full, so take that short money-saving drive down 144th Street or check us out online at koppelcars.com. You'll be glad you did.
In every office, there's 2 types of people. There are those who bring in bagels and those who eat the bagels that someone else brought in. Everybody likes the first person. Be that first person. Weekday mornings at 7:30, you have a chance to win a business box of bagels from Bagels & Joe. All you have to do is shut up, Sipple. 2 questions for you, 2 for Sip. Win, and the bagels are yours. Lose, well, you don't want to lose.
You lost Monday, you lost Wednesday, you're a loser.
Shut up, Sipple. Weekday mornings at 7:30, brought to you by Bagels & Joe.
Get a lot of advice about self-care these days, but one of the most important self-care steps we can take is making sure we're financially secure later in life. For small steps you can take to save for retirement, visit WeSaySaveIt.org. A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
This is the Sunday Rewind on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome back to the Husker Rewind. I'm Mike Melby. That's Tom Stevens. And as we do every Sunday, we bring in one of the best middle blockers to ever play for the University of Nebraska, Tanya Taki. Tanya, it was an interesting week. I think we all had a ton of anticipation for a streak being snapped. And lo and behold, that did not happen. Nebraska looked a little tight, a little, I don't know what. I want to get your thoughts on Nebraska-Wisconsin and the sweep by the Badgers on Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Badgers just had that, it factor in every category. In it, I don't know if it showed up in the stats as well, but they just look like they look like us. And it was funny because, watching our team play for the last 5 or 6 weeks and they're white and red, there were times where I was like, oh yeah, that's us. Oh wait, that's not us, because they were playing like we at that point. We were shutting down teams. We were shutting down their hitters. They were able to serve and make us completely off of our game. And so that's what we had been doing to teams in the last 4 or 5 weeks, and then they did it to us. And so it was just a complete flip. And so it was, when I was watching, I had to remind myself that we were the ones that were getting roofed.
Yeah. Well, we know how good Wisconsin was last year. We talk a lot about Dana Recchi, but they replaced Dana Recchi with one of the best outside hitters from Michigan State, a really good player from Kansas, some experienced transfers, while Nebraska is building now with more high school talent. Do you think that maybe John Cook looks at this and thought, well, I don't have to worry about these guys peaking too early, and now I have something to sell to this team? Hey, you're not as good as you think you are. Is there any of that
Right.
going on?
I mean, there's definitely a benefit of losing now. You know, we didn't take ourselves completely out of a Big Ten championship. Playing Wisconsin on the road, you know, it was a really good test for us to be, you know, are we a Final Four level team? You know, I've thought this whole time, even with the setting situation, even with missing, you know, 7 or 10 serves, I always felt like we were a top 10 team, but do we have what it takes to be a top 4 team in the country? And we felt like we were kind of there in these last 5 weeks, and this was just a test to be like, no, we have more to do.
What do you think that more to do is? Like, obviously, we struggled everywhere on Wednesday, and it was a nice rebound last night. But where does Coach Cook need to focus for the team as a whole? Is it in a specific area? Is it blocking? Is it serving? Is it receive? Is it what is that thing that he needs to focus on to get this team back to playing kind of the way they were and to get over the hump against the top caliber teams in the country?
Right. I mean, I think it's just some of the things that he's always saying, you know, you only have to be 2 points better, you know, that kind of thing. I just feel like we just kept trying the same thing over and over, or we didn't make that adjustment that we needed. And, you know, we were able to beat them if we want, you know, if we could do it. We went on an 11-1 run in one of the games. And it's like, we are fully capable of doing it. It's just, are we able to be a top level team when, you know, maybe it's 3 of our rotations where we're a top team, but then the other 3 rotations, we need to work on those. So I'm not sure if it's just consistency or it's like just confidence, or if you make a mistake, I don't want to say a mistake, but if you get roofed or schooled and either the other team hits it super hard at us or we get super just blocked to the like 2 or 3 in a row, that we do something different or we change it up. Instead, it just felt like we just kept doing the same thing. And, you know, just staying with our passing, you know, I feel like our passing broke down, our service team broke down, and so then we weren't able to set the ball up to our hitters in a place where they could get kills. We just have to be all around more confident and just better when things might not be going exactly our way. We have been relying on our block and defense for I don't know how long, and they were blocking us. And so it's like, oh no, now what?
Right.
So I think we just needed to bounce back faster from, okay, we're playing a team that blocks as well as us.
Yep. That's one thing it seems like John Cook always focuses on, being a great defensive team, and he has another one, but they need to take that step offensively. Talking with Tanya Taki of Nebraska One, what is the next thing that this team really needs to, what do you want to see? You know that the 6-2 is here to stay. What do you want to see for the next step for this team?
You know, I mean, I just think that we just have to put everything together, working on we have to say all 8 cylinders because it's not just 6, actually it's probably 9. You know, we're running a 6-2 and you have a libero, that's 9 people, you know, firing. You know, we have Becca Alec working really hard and getting a lot better. We're finally connecting with Caitlin Horde, you know, but can everybody do that all in the same night against a team like Wisconsin or Texas or Louisville? You know, when I watched Louisville lose to Pittsburgh, I thought what they weren't able to do is pass well enough to set their middles. And so I think that's something that we have really gotten better at, is just connecting with our middles. Like that is going to open up our outsides for, you know, seam shots and cross court shots when they only have one blocker up. So I would say just consistency and continuing to get better with our middles so that it opens up everything else.
Tanya, your thoughts on this week coming up? On Wednesday, they host Indiana. Then they travel to Northwestern next Sunday. 2 very winnable games. All the games are winnable. It's Nebraska volleyball. But 2 games that you fully expect Nebraska to win. Give me a little bit of a breakdown from what you know of both of those teams.
You know, I mean, we've played Northwestern already. I can't remember if we've played Indiana already. But I think one of the things that Coach Cook said in the post game of this last game, was that he wanted to get Maggie Mendelson in. He wanted to get Maisie Bosinger in and just get those players ready and, you know, seasoned and confident going into the postseason. So that way, if somebody isn't, you know, maybe having an off night, or sometimes the blockers just have your number, whether it's Krause, you know, or Kubik or whoever, that we can make a sub and just have somebody else come in and just bang some balls. So I think that's something that you'll see this week, is that he might be getting Maggie in a little bit more.
Tanya Taki, head coach at Nebraska One, one of the best middle blockers in Nebraska volleyball history. What's going on at Nebraska One these days?
We actually have high school tryouts on November 6th. So if you have a high school player that's looking to continue to get better for next season or wants to play in college, November 6th is the day.
Yeah. 8 regular season matches left for the Huskers, and we're going to talk to you after every one of them and then on to the postseason. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun one more month, basically, or actually 2 more months.
Yep.
Just for the break.
Well, we'll hope we're playing in December.
Well, we hope we're playing in December. We will be. I have full confidence. Thanks, Tanya. Appreciate it.
No problem. Have a good night.
There you go. There you go. Tanya Taki of Nebraska One. What do you think the limit is for this team? Does it feel like there's a lot left in the tank for them to get? I mean, you worry about a young team thinking too much of themselves, and maybe that happened before Wisconsin, but you want them feeling confident, and then Wisconsin brings you back down to earth, and that shakes your confidence a little bit. Then you get the sweep with Maryland on Saturday night. But what do you think the ceiling is for this team?
National title. I mean, there's no doubt about it. This team, I don't want to say they should. You know, hopefully they will, but I think they have every single piece they need to win a national title this year.
And I was saying that last year, not really believing it. I mean, like last year was really kind of a magical run. You didn't feel like Nebraska had Texas talent, and then they beat Texas in the NCAA tournament. And you're thinking, well, if they beat Texas, they can certainly beat Wisconsin. And, you know, it goes all the way to the wire, and Nebraska could have. It was just the difference of Wisconsin having some superstars that also happen to be 38 years old. Nebraska doesn't have that. They have the superstars, but they don't have the Lauren Stivrins. They don't have the Lexi Sons this year. And you'd kind of, I mean, they do have the Caitlin Hordes of the world, and that's nice to have her because she's an All-American. But you know what I mean? A girl like a Lauren Stivrins that has been here since she was 12.
Granted, but Maddie Kubik is, you know, she's here.
Yeah.
You still have Nicklin Hames.
Yep,
and,
you
do. And Ani Evans has been in the program for several years. Whitney Lonstein's a sophomore, and she played a lot last year. And not quite as much as she did this year, obviously, because she's become spectacular this year. But they have all the firepower that they need. And, you know, Lindsey Krause was a #1 recruit. She's a sophomore. And so I don't know. I like Allie Batenhorst. We can keep going. Lexi Rodriguez, by the way.
Right.
This is a team that is just, it's a grind. And I think maybe Wednesday they found out how much of a grind it is. And to Tanya's point, what do we do when somebody plays as well as we do and does what we do best? How do we figure out how to counter what we're good at?
Right. It makes me think back a little bit to something Mickey Joseph said last week. He was talking about Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. And like, you know, if you were a guy, you know, trying to break into the lineup, you better not have a bad practice, or you were going to get beat out by somebody who was going to be an All-American at some point in their career. It made me think back to the 90s where Nebraska had that, where if you showed up and you had a bad practice, you know, there was somebody on your tail that was going to take your job because they were an All-American waiting to be. And Nebraska has that in volleyball. I think that's advantage. That's a big advantage for John Cook, is that he can basically say, "Hey, how you that happened to Lexi Sun last year, 3-time All-American, whatever it was with her, couldn't break into the starting lineup, and it happens with great talent, not at Nebraska, except with the exception of volleyball. It's a good problem to have, but feeding all those mouths is sometimes hard as well."
True, and that's where the 6-2 comes in handy. You're not firing on all 8 cylinders. You're firing on 9 because you got 9 people playing every match a lot.
I was also going to say this. I think that loss to Wisconsin could be a good thing for
Nebraska.
I
agree.
I was a little bit worried that they were starting to feel their oats a little bit. And why wouldn't you? They'd won 8, whatever it was. I mean, they hadn't lost a set.
Yeah, they'd won 11 in a row. And had swept 6 straight opponents.
So you were maybe worried a little bit about overconfidence, and then the Wisconsin brings you to the ground. Yeah, let's get an update.
Quick update from Boulder, Colorado. Nebraska men's basketball team trails 62-49 to the Colorado Buffaloes with 5:44 left in the second half.
Yeah.
They've been down by 16, 18, and they cut it back to 11. And then this is I mean, I'll be honest. This is not a very talented team. Nebraska has.
I think it's.
There's talent.
I think
it's just
too early.
Yeah, it's a team that's going to have to win ugly. I'll just tell you that.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. I think you're going to see a lot of these types of games. I never thought I would say that, by the way, in the Hoiberg era.
No, I didn't either.
That they were going to try to win ugly. Yeah, I thought that was what Tim Miles tried to do, what Doc Sadler tried to do. I believe that with those teams, and now you're playing that way. I think that sometimes that's what you. Let's face it, Hoiberg faced a similar deal that Scott Frost faced. I think in that they both came in with extremely high expectations, and we had a visual of what the identity was going to be. Right when Frost was hired, oh yeah, just turn on film of UCF, or when Hoiberg was hired, oh yeah, just turn on film of Iowa State. You like up and down the floor. And, lots of dunks and great shooting, that type of thing. And now that visual is completely different from what it was year one.
Oh, it really is. I'll be honest. I'm more stunned with Fred Hoiberg than I am with Scott Frost. I just am. I was happy. We got, quoting Bill Moose, the pick of the litter with Frost at the time. And I can't imagine we could have made a different choice that would have been better at the time.
Everybody would have wanted.
Everybody would have wanted.
You could have had Saban up for grabs, and people to say,
no, we're going
to go with this Frost guy.
Yeah, but I was not sure it was going to work. I didn't think it was going to be what it ultimately was, but I truly thought that Nebraska in year 4 of Fred Hoiberg was going to be fighting for literally a top 2 seed in the country.
Yeah. Well, I think that meeting with the athletic director was similar for both Fred Hoiberg and Scott Frost. What are you going to do? I'm not forcing you to do anything, but what's your plan? I want to see a detailed plan, and let's hear back next week while you think about what you want to do going forward. In Scott Frost's case, I'm going to fire all my offensive coaches. In Hoiberg's case, I'm going to fire my best recruiter ever and my good friend, Matt Abdelmassi. And I'm going to go with a defensive style philosophy because I think that it's easier to get those guys. And we've lacked work ethic, quite frankly, Nebraska basketball these last couple of years. They both are very similar stories, Frost and Hoiberg, in that they kind of went all in, whether it was Mark Whipple or, the new defensive philosophy that Nebraska is trying to undertake here at Nebraska now. We'll see, but it feels like the stories are the same.
Yeah, but it's tough to get that out of your veins when that's what you do. Nebraska cuts it to 10, and they get a defensive rebound. They go flying down and pull up from 3, falling forward, 3 guys around him, back of the rim. Colorado goes the other way.
Of course they do. It's an exhibition game. It doesn't count. Even, maybe this is a good thing. They won last year's exhibition game. How'd the season go?
True.
Maybe you don't want to win this game. Maybe that's it. Maybe Fred thought it through and I don't want to win this game because we beat Colorado last year in the exhibition season, and the season didn't go well. 10 wins.
That could be it.
That might be it. We'll continue to update you on Nebraska basketball. I do want to do our coaching carousel coming up.
Well, and do you want to touch on women's hoops real quick?
Oh, absolutely.
They had a game earlier today.
That's right. They played Wagner, right?
They played Washburn, the Washburn Ichabods. And they were up 42-13 at halftime. They kind of called off the dogs in the second half. They win 70-27 today. Alexis Markowski does what Alexis Markowski does. 18 points, 10 rebounds. Izzy Bourne had 12 and 8 for the Huskers as well. And in the post game, Amy Williams made a comment that I found very interesting.
What was that?
Sam Habey had surgery on Thursday, and the injury was not as severe as we think, and it may not be a season-ending injury.
She may be available by the league season.
Yeah,
that changes everything for Nebraska.
It really does.
Basketball, because that's your leader. That's something you write down: 10 points, 5 assists every game.
Yeah. And by the way, fourth quarter, that's who has the ball,
right?
And that's who makes plays that. Sometimes they didn't make in the first 3 quarters.
And now you can go to Jazz Shelley or Hybe if she comes back. And I think that it sounds like she will. That is great news for Nebraska women's basketball. We'll do our coaching carousel. We don't take this thing that seriously.
Yeah, it's a stock market, man.
It's a stock market, but it's kind of fun to do this every week until Nebraska announces a new coach, new head football coach. Mickey Joseph could still be there. I mean, get to 6. I think he'll still be on that staff, but we will talk coaching and the coaching carousel coming up next.
You had to know that when Wingstop set out to make a crispy, juicy chicken sandwich, they wouldn't make it in just one flavor. They'd make it in all 12, like lemon pepper, mango habanero, hickory smoked barbecue, and OG hot. So why have one new favorite chicken sandwich when you can have 12? Try the new sauced and tossed Wingstop chicken sandwich today for only $5.49 at Wingstop, where flavor gets its wings. Valid for a limited time and available at participating Wingstop locations only while supplies last. Price subject to applicable taxes and fees.
I get it, slip it, cuff it, check it twice a day.
I get it, slip it, cuff it, check it in the morning and before dinner.
I get it, slip it, cuff it, check it, and share it with my doctor. Nearly 1 in 2 U.S. adults have high blood pressure. That's why it's important to self-monitor your blood pressure in 4 easy-to-remember steps. It starts with a monitor.
Now that I know my blood pressure numbers, I talked with my doctor. We're getting those numbers down.
Get it, slip it, cuff it, check it. Talk to doctor now and share it. Be next to talk to your doctor about your blood pressure numbers. Get down with your blood pressure. Self-monitoring is power. Learn more at manageyourbp.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the American Heart Association, and the American Medical Association. In partnership with the Office of Minority Health and Health Resources and Services Administration.
This is your captain. We are going to be experiencing some slight turbulence. Please fasten your... Oh, hold on. Just got a video of my cat.
Imagine the pilot of an airplane was as confident as you are texting and driving. Seems kind of crazy when you put it like that.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Back to the Sunday Rewind with Tom and Mike on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
The Ataris remaking one of my favorite songs that is a remake when I hated the original. I'm Mike Belby. That's Tom Stevens. This is the Husker Rewind on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Wait a minute. You hated Boys of Summer, the original?
I did not care for it at all. I just did not.
Not a Don Henley fan?
Not a Don Henley fan. I was not an Eagles fan. I am not a classic rock fan in any way, shape, or form.
But here's the funny thing. If the Eagles had come out now, they'd be probably in the country Southern rock genre.
Oh, yeah.
Is known then. Yeah. I bet they would be country.
They might be.
I think their music would be. It'd be interesting. Like Marshall Tucker would have been country now.
Yeah, true.
But whatever. Yeah. But I dig that song. But you like the remake, okay?
I really, really like the remake.
Let's get to the coaching carousel. Do you have something else?
Oh, no, I was going to coaching carousel and stock market and the way we're doing it. I think it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Because you know what? If a coach wins, he's got to be our next head coach. And if he loses next week, then he can't be because his stock's down.
Exactly. We're not taking this thing overly seriously. And in some cases, you put a guy on the list because you think he's gettable. Like, you're not going to probably ask out, I don't know.
Giselle is single now.
She's single, but you're probably not going to get that date. I mean, I had a buddy that, when you get fired from a job, he got fired from a job and he was required to, to get employment. Obviously you had to, you had to apply for jobs, and he applied for the athletic director job at the University of Nebraska when Steve Peterson got fired. But so, I mean, that's kind of along those lines.
Did he get an interview?
No, he didn't get an interview. But at number 5 on my list, I've got Brett Bielema. I just got a lot of texts. That's the guy I want. He took Wisconsin. He took Nebraska football. Actually, we know that Barry Alvarez did it originally. Took Nebraska football to Madison, and then, of course, Brett Bielema took over and continued that. Paul Chryst, not as much. But I I think that a lot of Husker fans just want to see that style back at Nebraska.
No, running the ball guy definitely does.
Yeah.
So,
but you're not getting him. He's an Iowa alum. I think the most likely scenario is that he stays at Illinois. But if he gets another gig, I think it's because of a negotiated buyout with Kirk Ferentz, and then he goes back to Iowa. Yeah, I think that's where he ends up.
Because then he can show off his Iowa tattoo. He'll wear the backless chaps.
What's your number 5?
My number 5.
Backless chaps.
Well, that's where his Iowa tattoo is,
That's
isn't
right.
it? That's where it is.
I think it is.
Dave Dorn, North Carolina State. I still think I've had him kind of in my top 5-ish, whatever, stock rising guy. I like him. I think he's got a shot. I think it'd be an interesting hire and one I could get behind.
At number 4, I haven't had him on the list. I probably should have before this. Sonny Dykes. His dad, Spikes, of course, resurrected the Texas Tech program. TCU is now 8-0. He's been a really good coach wherever he's been. He came from SMU, has a winning record as a head coach. Is coming off a weekend win over West Virginia, 41-31. Sometimes it's easy to fall into those trap games when you're 7-0, and they didn't, at least this weekend. I really like Sonny Dykes at number 4.
I actually brought a guy in I had not mentioned that had been mentioned by others before, but I'm going to throw Mark Stoops of Kentucky in my top 5 this week.
They're coming off a loss, though.
I know.
Stock down on that one.
But that's normally a stock down, but I have not had him listed before. And the more I've kind of looked into what Kentucky has done and the way he's built that program up over the years, the guy knows how to build a successful program. And it's not like he's building a program in the MAC or in the AAC. He's building it in the toughest football conference in America. And he's had some pretty damn good success. So I'm going to throw Mark Stoops in at number 4 for me this week.
At number 3 on my list, I've got Cale DeBoer. He's 48 years old. He's at the University of Washington. He's a South Dakota grad. He went to the University of South Dakota, Sioux Falls, actually. But they are 6-2 and taking over, not a great situation, but he's made it a really good situation. Was at Fresno State, has moved to Washington, and now he's got them at 6-2, and he's got those Midwest ties, but he's also been on the West Coast long enough now that he could recruit that area as well.
Yeah, and Kalen DeBoer is a guy that I had on my list earlier this year. And a couple of losses, and it was just like, we're going to cool him off a little bit. I wouldn't mind sneaking him back on my list, but since you already did, I'm going to leave Lane Kiffin on my list at number 3. And I know it's weird, but I would like to see Lane Kiffin as the head coach at Nebraska because I think it would be entertainment 24/7.
Well, he does have Nebraska ties. Of course, his dad was the defensive coordinator here. He spent some time here as a kid. Maybe it is a possibility you could get Lane Kiffin. I just don't see it as being a very good possibility. At number 2 on my list, I've got Chris Kleinman. Kansas State is currently 6-2 and coming off a 48-0 win over Oklahoma State. We'll know a lot more this week because they have Texas this week. But that was without Adrian Martinez. He didn't even play it down, and they went 48-0 with a freshman quarterback.
Well, and this is why it's the stock market, because I think you threw him off your list last week. He was like your number 1 guy to go away.
No, I don't know that I threw him off my list, but he wasn't very high on my list.
Yeah. So number 2 for me is the guy that showed Nebraska how to win in the Big Ten West yesterday, Brett Bielema. I know he's not coming here, but on my wish list with his stock rising, I dropped him from number 1. But he's my number 2.
At number 1 on my list is still David Rand. He was last week. He wins again this week. They have the 45-17 win over Texas Tech. You know, you always hire what you don't have. His teams always play defense, almost always, from his stops at Utah State, Wisconsin, LSU. He's had the 12th ranked total defense in the country. He's had the 5th ranked total defense in the country. He's had the 2nd ranked total defense in the country and 9th 2 times. And the good news is if you hire him, you probably keep Bush and Mickey because they're friends of his.
And probably Brian Applewhite as well.
And probably Brian Applewhite. I think, you know, they're not doing anything incredible, but they are 5-3, and they have as good of a chance as anybody in the Big 12 to win that league. But can I say something?
It's a radio show that you host. I'm going to say yes.
Go get Urban Meyer. I mean, if you really, really want to win, Go get Urban Meyer and just say, whatever you want. You want $20 million? Here's $20 million. Spend it. The only thing I would like to know from Urban is, do you really want to coach again? And you'll be able to tell that from an interview. And if he says, you know what, I'm very happy getting up at 11 and being on the set of Big Noon by 12. And that's what I'll do. And I'm paid handsomely for it. And I don't have any stress. But if he is at all interested, pull the trigger. Maybe a bad pun. But go after Urban Meyer if he's available.
Tom, you know who my number one is?
Who?
Urban Meyer.
See?
It's not a joke. Actually, it's Urban Meyer. I have him number one. He's at the top of my list. So,
but you can't get him, right? You don't
Why
believe
not?
that you can get him. He just seems too real to be like, she likes me. What, really? I mean, it doesn't feel like it's, maybe he's just over the hill enough where it's okay. He's actually younger than I am. I think he's 57.
You and I are both in the same boat. Okay. You don't think you can get them, right? Well, your wife is spectacular and amazing, and my girlfriend is spectacular and amazing, and I think we both outkicked our coverage.
Way outkicked our coverage.
You just don't even argue, man.
Yep, you're right. So go get Urban Meyer. Maybe you can get Urban Meyer. On the stock falling list, I'll just go through my the guys. David Shaw, I've heard a lot of guys mention David Shaw to me. Go get him. Well, they just lost this past week to Chip Kelly, 38-13. And, they had it going. When Jim Harbaugh built Stanford, David Shaw took it over and made it just as good or better for a while. But now they've lost their luster. And I would say he's in the stock falling category.
I would say Chris Kleinman, even though he had the big upset, would be on my personal stock falling one.
They just beat Oklahoma State 48-0.
I've never had him very high, and I'm dropping him off the list.
All right. You're allowed to do that. Number 3, Matt Campbell. Iowa State has lost 5 in a row. They are 3-5. They've lost again this weekend. I just would not be happy with the hire of Matt Campbell right now. And I know it's probably an overreaction, but that's what I do. I'm overreacting. I don't want Matt Campbell.
I am going to actually have a stock falling on Matt Rule. The more I think about it, the more I still would love to have him be our coach, but the less likely I think it is. And so my disappointment has just shrouded over me, and I'm going to drop Matt Rule into my stock falling.
Number 2, stock falling, Lance Leipold. I know they're coming off a bye, so how do you punish a team that's lost, 3 in a row, but is coming off a bye? They didn't play this week. Still, the stock has fallen and is gone for me as far as Lance Leipold. And I know he has the Nebraska connections, and he was on staff under Frank Solich. I think it's over for me.
Fair enough. And if they come back and win next week, then
he's back up.
On your
and
stock
they win the Big 12,
which is why this is so fun.
You have any more?
I was going to say Leipold and Campbell kind of were already on my list last week.
Number 1 is Mike Gundy, 48-0 to Kansas State.
He was high on your list last week,
I know
too.
He was high on my list, but I guess I just have never really liked the style of play. They always win shootouts, and I don't think it fits well into the Big Ten.
And I know we're getting close on time. I want to give a final score from Boulder. The Nebraska Cornhuskers men's basketball team fall to the Colorado Buffaloes 72-61 in an exhibition game. The most important thing that you need to take away from this is the fact that it went to benefit charity. Nebraska and Colorado did it last year as well. And I think it's a really cool thing that they're doing. 2 Power 5 conference teams getting together to try to raise a couple of bucks for a charity. And I think that's awesome.
Have you been able to look at the minutes enough to know that if Nebraska, was it similar to Chadron State where a bunch of different guys are playing minutes and you don't necessarily care if you win? You just want guys to get minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you knew you'd still win because you're playing Chadron State. But was it similar in that the minutes were just spread around to everyone?
It looked like it. Oleg played. Had a couple of nice moves, I'll be honest. Kind of surprised me. He's got a really deft touch. He does. He's you can see where that potential and that build is, where the vision is that Coach Hoiberg probably has for him.
All right. So there's something. But Nebraska loses to Colorado in an exhibition. But again, I will say Nebraska beat Colorado in the exhibition season last year, and the season turned out to be terrible. So I'm happy.
Reverse psychology.
That's
like
right.
it.
Maybe even Freddie said, don't win this game. I'm telling you, don't win it. It didn't go well. So I don't take anything from this game.
No, you take about as much as you took from the Chadron State game, and you're like, yeah, whatever. Guys, I was a little worried though. Sam, talk about hustle. Okay, it's an exhibition game. Sam Griesel
runs the length of the court trying to save a ball and dives around a guy kind of horizontal to the ground, gets the ball, tries to throw it back in, and he was down on the court for a minute. And I was actually pretty worried, but he got back up, played the remainder of the game. So luckily it was nothing too serious on the injury front for Sam Griesel, but he got a couple of bumps and bruises there in that one.
Mentioned Sam Hybe. Apparently the injury wasn't that bad. I mean, apparently she can now play Nebraska basketball this year for the female Huskers. And, of course, they're thinking maybe right around league play is when Sam Hybe might be available to Nebraska basketball this year. How you feeling this week going into Minnesota week?
As optimistic as I will feel until the Iowa week. And then after that, the other 2 weeks, Wisconsin and Michigan, I'm not positive. I don't think I'm going to feel real good. But, hey, the sun's going to come up on Saturday, and we got a shot.
That's right.
So
you're saying there's a chance, Lloyd Christmas.
Yes.
I think that they're going to win a game you don't expect, but I don't expect them to win any of the games left on their schedule. So
yeah, I actually made that prediction about 3 weeks ago.
See you next week.
They might win, they might lose, but either way, you have something to say about it. Don't miss the Husker After Party postgame show immediately following every Nebraska football game. Nick Sainert and Jake Bachhoven give instant reaction, quotes from the players and coaches, and take all your phone calls with thoughts on the game. It's the Husker After Party postgame show, only on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Sponsored by Action Plumbing and Heating, Gary Michaels Quilliers, and Brent Excavating.
Early break with Sip and Jake.
The division sucks. The Big Ten West sucks right now. And the fact that you should have a chance to win this thing.
You should be in there.
Next year is the final year of the Big Ten West.
Yeah, it's not.
And I can't see right now projecting the next year one team having an epic rise. It looks like it's going to be very similar to this year of a hodgepodge.
I have a hard time saying that it sucks.
It's not very good.
Early break with Sip and Jake from 6 to 8 every weekday morning on 93.7 The Ticket.
What I know about courage, I learned from my adoptive mom. She said sometimes you just gotta hold on and know we'll get through this. Mom, we are so high up. Hold my hand.
No, you hold my hand.
Here we go.
Learn about adopting a team